All right. Good evening, everyone. We are sitting here for the Thursday, July 10th meeting of the Athens Shade Tree Commission. First up, we will establish our quorum. 3 or 4, still quorum. Have you guys seen the minutes?
Yes.
Yep.
Any issues with them?
Not for me.
We want to accept them?
Motion to accept.
Motion, second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. We've got kind of a light agenda here tonight. I don't think there's anything that came in through the city or anything.
You will be seeing the Hugh White Honda on Columbus probably for the next meeting, but I didn't get that to you in time for this meeting, so I apologize.
Okay. Yep, no problem. I was wondering where that was. You guys we were talking about it in that meeting, and I was like, I wonder if it's still in.
I didn't have time to get it.
All good. Well, it's probably for the best instead of rush it, for 12 hours ahead. So, we don't have anything under Title 33, under Title 37, nothing for the maintenance of the tree canopy. Really, the only point that we have to cover here tonight is, kind of this long-awaited meeting with city admin over these proposed code changes that came out, I think, in March or something like that. So it was kind of a lot of different points. It was kind of a sweeping mix of different things, of touching on the pollinator program, on how we define noxious weeds, tweaks to the shade tree requirements, a lot of different things. And then I think those are a little bit secondary and might come up like in deeper discussion, but the real big one was the changing of the city code, where it gives us approval process over these landscape plans and the subdivision plans and street widenings. Is that right?
BUDs, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I met along with Ann Bonner and Robert Bowl, who are ODNR urban foresters, with you and Andy Stone yesterday. And really where it kind of comes down to is the city does not want to have additional approval steps beyond the 3 mandated by state law, which is the zoning board of appeals and planning. So they're, the idea is to take this little bit of approval power and house it under planning commission. Obviously the big concern here is that in taking away approval, even with review, it's easy for voices to get lost in that shuffle when there's not like a necessary check that has to occur there. So I think what we're going to try to do is, I think Andy Stone's goal was to have this by October before city council elections changed the makeup, to have this figured out. And so beyond that, we kind of need to hammer down some wording, maybe in some other spots of, how we can maintain that communication with being skipped in approval. So kind of their thought is to, instead of have us be basically the rubber stamp of approval that we are now, come in at the very beginning in those initial, is that in the very first initial assessment, and look at those landscape plans that come through and provide our recommendations to the planning commission. And he made it pretty clear, he doesn't want to lose us as, a helpful guide. But, having this spread of authority beyond what's mandated in the state, seems to be a big sticking issue with the city. So, Hopefully we will be trading, final approval, stamp to first review recommendations. That will still come down to how we hammer that down. Some of the things that we talked about is maybe getting someone here, either ex officio, so sitting over there like Dave, or maybe even someone on as like a permanent member of, I kind of suggested loosely service safety director or an appointee, because it sounds like there is not always a clear head of management or, person that we can point to for, like, they know exactly what's going on in these things. So, having someone here, and Dave, obviously you've been a great help, but you're retiring soon, is the word on the street. And even with your replacement, I think there's going to be a little bit lost in the sauce there. And, even just having somebody a little bit closer to those maintenance crews and stuff will really help us. We also talked to him about potentially getting some sort of viewing access or something to, is it iWork? Is that? Or whatever they use to keep these work logs. And so we can have a little bit of a look behind the screen on, when these removals, this, upkeep of the canopy is happening, things like that. So that is really the big piece that we'll be working to hammer out. So I'll be asking, in the coming weeks here for your guys' thoughts on potential code changes that we would propose. It would probably look, at least mostly like those changes of crossing out shade tree, putting in planning commission, in what those, what the recommendations look like. But ideally, maybe with a couple other additions of closing those gaps, and then kind of, I don't know that this needs to be in code, but one of the things I would like to see, and maybe we could put this in the bylaws for the commission, is to have somebody from the commission be present at those planning commission meetings when there is a landscape plan. So, it's not just, a couple lines of email that they see at the very back of the agenda. We do have someone there to voice those concerns and recommendations. So that's kind of where that stood. Did you have, yeah.
Yeah, so I see that there are some issues with the way the planning commission integrates with the rest of the approval process, and that's what one of the things we're trying to do is to fix that. What happens a lot of times, just because of timing, planning commission will look at a project and then it doesn't come to the shade tree for weeks later, right? And so that's kind of a broken system. We want to try to fix that and make it better if we can. And so we think that we can change some of the stuff where we can have the Shade Tree Commission looking at, the Shade Tree Commission is responsible for, as you said, for basically 3 types of landscape development approvals, Title 41, subdivision regulations, and PUD regulations. So when those come in, those landscaping plans, nobody really looks at them until after Planning Commission has already seen them and is waiting for final approval, and you guys haven't even seen them yet. So we'd like to switch that around to try to figure out how to get the Shade Tree Commission to be on the upfront end of that instead of the back end where it's all already been approved and you're kind of it's a system that just doesn't work very well. So we wanted to try to fix that. We also know that there's some sections in the Title 37 landscaping code that isn't really integrated into any of the permits. So there's some requirements. There aren't any permits for those requirements, and so that's always, even before me, that's never been able to be enforced or to be activated because it just doesn't fit the rest of the way the cities run the permitting process. So we wanted to do that. We also think, so that's the approval process for developments, but there's also a disconnect between the maintenance of the tree canopy
and the Shade Tree Commission. And we think we're looking at some methods to try to integrate those two to better, because we really need your expertise on what to do. There's a dead limb, and there's a tree in the right of way, and that kind of stuff. And we haven't had a very good system so far that actually integrates the Shade Tree Commission in with the maintenance of the tree canopy, and that's, as we talked about, it was broken down into multiple departments. So you have the street department that would be does some tree trimming and does emergency work, and then you have landscaping maintenance over in the parks area. Those are two completely different entities, and when we're talking about maintenance of the tree canopy, we have to work with both of those groups to be able to do that. So we're trying to find ways to actually make the system work better.
Yeah, and I do think, not to say like, oh, I want to be able to upload work orders or whatever, but, having one of those like people on the maintenance team here, like we have a bullet point here every week of maintenance of the tree canopy, and sometimes it's something's wrong and we say it, and there's not really those direct lines of contact that we would like to see. So certainly there's already a little bit of a forum here for anybody on the council or the commission here to bring up what they've seen in the city for the past month. So maybe streamlining from this 0.5 on the agendas into some sort of at least review process by the maintenance people or something. And then, there were a lot of other points, like you said. There's a lot of stuff under 37. There was some of the initial things under Title IX. I think those seem to be a little less urgent, so I think those will kind of be hashed out piece by piece, and maybe they could all come together, but they might need to be separated out from this approval changing structuring thing. So did you have any other thoughts on what came up there, Dave?
No, I thought it was a pretty productive meeting. We've got some things we want. You guys have some things you want, and we're trying to make that work together. So
Yeah.
I think it was pretty productive.
Yeah, it definitely, it was good. Andy's been very busy for the past couple months here, so it was good to be able to get in a meeting with him and kind of hash some of this stuff out. So kind of beyond that, this will be, like I said, this will be developing as we go here. We're hoping to have this, it'll be, since it's a proposed code change, it will need 3 readings. So ideally before sometime early September, have a fairly rough, finalized code to put forward to City Council for something like that. So we'll be working with that. Ann Bonner and Robert both said that they'll be proposing different changes, even just in general of all the different code changes. And, that might be a good source of, looking at different ways that we can influence and tighten up the code and things like that. So, moving on from that, we've got a little bit of old business here still. So one of the things that I did want to bring up yesterday with Andy, and it was a lot to pack into an hour, and it was still a lot to pack into 2 hours. I wanted to get his opinion on this code or the change in the qualifications for contractors. I don't know. I don't want this to be like a big halt on city processes or anything like that. I'm hoping it's not. I think we have enough people here in the city that could fill those roles if needed. And then it gives, not to jump the gun on the grant stuff that I'll talk about here in a minute. Along with those grants, we will need to put out a request for bids if that does come up, if we do get that grant. And under that grant, they are required to have ISA certification anyway. So hopefully this is enough lead time to alert those people, the local contractors, people that would want to work with us, give them the time to look into getting an ISA qualified employee, and then it opens that pool a little bit more for bids. And then that will be the same for any of these grants that we would apply to under ODNR or anything like that. It's a pretty standard thing. So I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any, okay. So I will, I have the list of all the people pulled up here. I wanted to kind of get that okayed through the city before we went out. And in my preliminary talks with her, it was like, please make sure you okay that with the city. So I'll go ahead, I'll send that email out tomorrow, tomorrow. And we will, hopefully that gives us enough lead time for everyone to get in for these applications. So for committee updates, like I said, we're working on this ODNR grant pretty hard. Things are fairly roughly finalized. We have a rough agenda of what we want to see accomplished, a rough budget, things like that. Talking to Ann Bonner yesterday, right after the meeting, she brought up some concerns. So really one of the things that they want to see out of this to make it most competitive is really not some sort of systemic change, but some sort of up training or, protocol creation for the city. So, the three big things that we have in the budget right now are a street tree inventory, along with a planting inventory, so planting sites, all the sites in the city right-of-ways, what could be planted there if it's medium, large, different things like that, and then a follow-up round of hazard pruning and hazard reduction from what comes out of that inventory. And kind of warned me that that's not really the systemic thing that they want to see out of this, because this is focused on creating an urban forestry program. So I think maybe in coordination with this need for us to have, someone overseeing these things and someone, being the interface between us and the city, we still have about $25,000 free in the budget. So there is certainly money if there is some sort of will for the city, either in training on SOP creations, on, getting someone in the management ISA certified, anything like that. I think that will go a lot further. There's a lot of money still left in this, and those are relatively easy, long-term kind of systemic changes that I think could be done without too much pain. So I think we will probably be talking to you and Andy on if there are any ideas, anything that you guys want to see. It's basically, and then the 25,000 that's free right now, there's still a lot that can be wiggled away. So we, probably up to $40,000 of that budget that can be, thrown at the city in whatever way seems to make sense. So, but in addition to those things, two of the other really cool programs that even if we don't get the grant, I would like to kind of tackle in whatever other way we can, is a pathway for urban wood utilization. So that is basically the waste wood that would be produced from these hazard tree removals, prunings, things like that. The current thought is to work with Makerspace to, they have a lot of space, they have a lot of creators, to divert that waste wood away from the landfill or to a chipping station or whatever, and basically drop it off, or at least kind of have somewhat of a standing order with Makerspace of, are there things that you want? Are there things that, people making things in your space want to work on, and then upskilling some of those people. So, maybe a workshop about milling, a workshop about using some of that wood for public use. So their thoughts is to really do a delivery, a milling workshop where we take, these rounds or trunks or whatever city municipal waste that we can get, and process them and then a second workshop on using that processed wood to make like a bat box or make a, like a bee hotel or a bird box or something like that, to be installed at like a city garden or something like that. And so that's a really exciting pathway. Makerspace is really, really excited about it. That will, really require a lot of conversation with the management people, making sure that we know when contractors are removing trees and making sure that, a defined pathway is in place for what to do with these things so that we're not, just taking everything that could be useful and taking it to a landfill, or that we're taking everything that might be waste and just dropping it at the doorstep of Makerspace. And then finally, under the grant, we were kind of looking to do an urban food forest. So this was kind of approved in previous years. We applied for this grant, I believe, a year ago, 2 years ago. The thought was there is a space a little bit set back from the bike path in between the community gardens and the student gardens. That doesn't quite get into the driving range, and it's not quite in kind of that dip that's right there. We're still kind of working out the kinks on that. So we're still making sure before we ask city for approval on that again, that we have some sort of infrastructure in place that could care for those in long term. So we'll be meeting with CFI tomorrow to kind of discuss that. And then we've talked to the city garden, the West Side Gardens about it. They seem to not really have the infrastructure or the volunteer support that they would need to care for those long term. And then, we're trying not to drop this on the city as, here's 50 trees, now we have to upkeep these and pruning and, kind of a very hands-on way that, at least for the first 5 or so years, these fruit trees would require. But that's kind of where the grant stands right now. Still a little bit of wiggle room. There's definitely a lot of dead space in that grant money as it stands, and we're kind of trying to nail this all down here. We're trying to get all of our ducks in a row, make sure everybody's on board, make sure our budgeting is in place, and then that will be due on August 27th. So we've got a lot to do here, and hopefully by next Shade Tree Commission we will have everything really in place and hopefully be in a good spot to get approved. And then finally, just another plug for the planting on November 8th at the outdoor gym. I guess, what would you call that space over there, Dave? It's not quite the intramural. It's not the intramural fields. I guess it's behind the new firehouse, I guess is.
Yeah. Now you're going to provide, or you're going to get us a list of trees you'd like to have.
Yeah, so I actually sent that to you.
Oh, you did? Okay, I haven't seen it.
I can resend it over. That would have been.
It was like a map was attached to it, all of them drawn out.
Got it. I did.
Yeah. Planting map.
And you sent that to Catherine Ann Jordan as well.
Yes, she said about 2 weeks ago that she would send it to Kevin Scurlock to look over and see if he had any thoughts. She hasn't sent anything back, so I don't know. I can go through that list right now. The spacing that we have right now, let's turn sideways here. We can account for about 25 trees on the sides, and then talk with Catherine Ann. There's also that space that is in front of, there's like a heron sculpture or whatever, that's kind of that new green space from the spoil that was moved down a little bit. There's a lot of space there. I was thinking maybe 4 or 5 trees that could be placed in there. I'm still kind of working on exactly what we would want, because as I got out there I was like, well, we're gonna have to make sure that these are still within line of sight, but we want it to look good as you're coming in off Stimson. So I put in six trees there, and I think they could be placed out relatively loosely so that you can still see those things, and it doesn't really eat up a lot of that vision space. So that's a total of 29 trees that I have accounted there. And it's a big mix of stuff. So I'm expecting that what Menards has is not going to be. I have yellowwood in there. I don't think they're going to have yellowwood.
Okay.
So that's just kind of the dream wish list of a pretty diverse planting there. So happy to
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll send those, that request to Menards. They'll find out what they have available, and then if we have to substitute something, we'll go back to you on those, what those substitutions, what you'd like to see.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And most of they've all been picked. That's not going to be anything that is nut producing that's right, or nut or fruit producing that's right over top of it. They should be all pretty good shade trees. The further down, there's a lot of standing water issues. So pick some things that are pretty well adapted to dealing with wet roots. So I think it should be a decent plant. I think we're not really going to see many issues. I do have 3, like a cluster triangle of like smaller fruit trees at the front, like dogwoods and I don't know what else I have here. Serviceberry at the very front as a little fruit thing. So maybe a little tree as people come in the June. So I have that all over to you. Hopefully we can get that approved and swapped out as needed. Catherine Ann sounds like they have tools. One thing we wanted to check, or I still need to check with Catherine Ann, it sounded like they had plans to get an auger. That wasn't totally finalized, and she was like, well, we'll see where that gets. So an auger would really help us here. We could auger those out the day before, and then have the volunteers kind of shave those bits a little bit, and then plant in. So it would make it a lot of a lighter lift. I also reached out to Soil Water Conservation District to see if we could get a soil test down there. I have not heard back from them, so if you've got any connections over there, Dave, short of me just dropping in one day, which I might need to do, let me know. I need to see if they have a soil probe, or if I just need to go out there with a shovel.
I've got a soil probe.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'd like to take some there just to see the pH stuff. I have some pin oaks that on the list, and those are definitely going to be available. So if it stays pretty acidic, that'd be a great fit. But if it's not acidic, they might not do so great. So we've got that planned, and talked to Mary Reed of the Arbor Day committee. She sounds like she has a pretty good list of volunteers that are ready to do that. So invited the mayor. I think everything should be good. So once this is done, once the trees are picked and we've got that finalized, I think probably maybe September or something, we should start putting out some stuff through the city and through the Arbor Day Foundation to get it popularized.
So you said you wanted, so November 8th is a Saturday. On Friday, start kind of digging things up?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And then that should hopefully, deep into the winter, hopefully the, the grounds team there won't be too swamped. This won't be too big of an ask for them out of their schedule. But we can kind of tackle that and see if they get an auger or not, and if not, then maybe we'll start digging on Thursday and see if we can get it done.
She said she had a shed full of tools that she wanted to show us too.
Yes, so she also mentioned that through like a Beautifying America grant or something like that, they have a trailer of tools, so hand tools that we can use. So I think that should be good. I tried to get out there to kind of see it and take stock and see what all was in there, but I couldn't nail down a date with her, so that's still a little bit to be nailed down still, but I think the outlines are all in place. And then I think that's all we've got for tonight. Does anyone have anything else that they wanted to bring up? Any thoughts?
No.
All right. Did you have something you wanted to bring up here, sir?
Yeah, my name's Aaron Leatherwood. I live at 100 Coventry Lane. I came in a couple minutes minutes after the meeting started, so perhaps you already discussed the.
What was the last name, I'm sorry?
Leatherwood.
Leatherwood, okay.
So perhaps you already discussed the permit request I submitted last month?
I don't think we don't have anything on the agenda for tonight. Did we have anything,
Yeah,
Dave?
let me see, I thought I sent that to you in the end of June, like the 23rd. Let me see if I can find it here.
Let me see. Yeah, maybe we covered it last meeting. I don't.
I sent it to you just after the last meeting you had, so you did not.
Yeah, so
cover
I
the
wouldn't
last
think
meeting.
so.
Yeah, so Aaron sent us a request, or put it in the system on June 15th, and I think I sent that to you on the 23rd. And it was a request to plant several trees in the city's right-of-way at 100 Coventry.
Let me see if I can pull that up here.
Was it sent only to Tristan?
I'm sorry?
Was it only sent to Tristan?
Might have been, yeah.
Okay.
This would have been the.
I didn't want to go through all my emails.
Yes, I
Just
think
so.
I only sent it to the chair.
Let me see. I don't think I've got it here, Dave.
I can resend it. It's was a permit. It's a tree permit for 25-00006.
Okay. Well, Aaron, maybe you can describe it a little bit for us
Right.
while
Well,
we
that's
work
kinda
to pull
what
it
I
up
was
here.
thinking, on the one hand, like, you have your process and everything, but on the other hand, I think there's a benefit to dialogue, so.
Yes, definitely.
So, it's you guys are familiar with Coventry Lane, or?
A little bit, but
But if you go down Pomeroy Road, if you go down to the bottom of Pomeroy Road, there's that vet at the bottom of the hill. Mm-hmm. And my house is the house that's right next door to the vet.
okay.
There were, across the front of the house, a pine tree that had been damaged by grapevines. There were 3 Bradford pears. Mm-hmm. And then there was another pine tree that was kind of leaning out towards the street. And all of these were like kind of right up against this, there's like a drainage feature, I guess we could say, that serves that neighborhood, and it's kind of prone to flash flooding. And when they put the house in, they spent a lot of money engineering this. Like, there's retaining walls, some serious retaining walls there and all that. These things were growing right up against the retaining walls, and they were very well built. Like, I asked people, well, how old do you think that is? And they're like, oh, it looks like it's about 5 years old. It's like a 30-year-old system. But these trees were starting, like, you could look down the edge of it and see the walls were just starting to bulge out, and the trees were starting to put pressure on it all. Mm-hmm. And the Bradford pears and everything. So I took those out.
Gotcha.
And so now it's kind of like, okay, well, what to replace them with? I was talking to my wife. We like the look of the Japanese cherry trees along the bike path. There's a fairly large open space there. And so we were thinking, well, maybe Japanese cherry trees, but those could maybe take some more maintenance. We'd be fine with river birches as well.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, if it's in your front yard, I mean, certainly for the cherries, they will take a little bit of pruning, especially in those first couple of years, and then maybe an occasional, it's not going to be high risk. They're low to the ground, but they will take a little bit of pruning. And one of the things I would suggest if you do put them in is to use some sort of trunk protector for the first couple years. If you go along the bike path, you can figure out which way is southwest because that's where all the cracks are. So in the winter, as the trunk freezes, as the sun comes out and heats it up throughout the day, and I think you're probably shaded enough in there that you might not deal with this.
There's no shade at all. It's
Okay.
a lot of sunlight.
So they will, especially when they're young and they have that thin bark, the stem will freeze, but it will heat back up throughout the day, and that will cause these cracks. And they're not, the cherries are good about compartmentalizing that, but that may be something that you want to keep an eye on. I think I'm happy to.
If I recall, the trees you removed are on private property.
Correct.
The trees you want to put in are going to be in the city's right of way.
Correct, because, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the distance from this sort of retaining wall feature that I have to the street is, I don't know, on the order of 15 feet, 20 feet, something like that. Whatever that width is, I'd want to put them at about the halfway point there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. They're not going to pose like a problem in the right of way. They don't get tall enough to have falling risk. If they were tall, I would be a little, if it was like a black cherry or something, maybe I would be a little worried because they're very self-pruning. That might be.
And you'd be fine with river birches as well? If we wanted to
Yes,
go that way?
definitely. That'll be an easy one. So I think either of them, I'm happy to approve.
If you could approve one or the other and just let us decide as we get into it, that would be cool.
Yeah, I will, since we'll have to look at it and approve it again once I see it. I think pending maybe a site assessment and recommendation of what to plant in there, so I can drive down there
Yeah,
sometime
that's
this
cool.
weekend or something.
I'm usually around if you want to walk it.
Okay. Yeah, I would. I'd be happy to go down there and take a look at it. I think they're probably both a good fit. I
think-
guess.
You've got my number, right, Dave?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so,
So I guess I'll just kind of see what looks better from a management standpoint. But I think happy to approve a planting request, and I'll just go out there.
Wait till the next meeting. We could get back with Aaron before the next meeting to let him know what's going on.
there's truly no rush on this. I just wanted to, kind of know what the plan was. It's my understanding it's better to plant these things towards the fall, so we plant in September, October.
Yes. Yeah, and so we'll definitely have time, I'll have time to look over it, and I'll let you know. I do, now that you've said the Japanese cherry, I remember getting this email, and it might just be, maybe it's in one of these threads or something that we had, Dave. So I'll actually go over and take a look and kind of give you my 2 cents on what I think would be a better fit between the two.
Sounds good. I'm off and around. If you want to knock on the door, that's fine too.
All right. Well, maybe plan on tomorrow.
Sure.
I'll get in touch with you.
Okay, well, thank you, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Sure thing.
Yeah, and I always want to make sure I try to make it an easy process. Obviously this got a little haywire here, but I do want to make sure that people know that we're always happy to plant in the right of way. That's kind of one of the things that we're looking on under this grant, if we would get it, is looking at spots where we can plant things in. So always happy to approve and give thoughts on where you can plant things in our city right of way and what would be a good fit. So I will get in touch with you here soon, Aaron, but we will wait till next meeting to approve it. It should still be plenty of time for you.
Sure thing.
All right. I think that's all we've got. Any last thoughts here?
Nothing from me.
Any motions to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next month.